On July 18, 1969, the town of Merrill Creek hung paper flags down Main Street, tuned the brass band, and set lemon pies to cool on windowsills for the Centennial Fair. By dawn on July 19th, porch swings moved on their own, and every front door stood slightly ajar. Coffee had gone cold on stoves. The cards and half-played hands of gin rummy waited for turns that never came. A lawn hose ran until it carved a muddy trench beside white hydrangeas. There were no people. Before noon, state cruisers rolled up the county roads, and men in gray windbreakers stapled quarantine placards to telephone poles. The governor's office called it a chemical event and pushed the press back to the highway. A week later, the Merrill Creek signs were removed and replaced with a number, State Property 42, and the maps forgot that a town had ever been there. 56 years later, a corrugated box with no return address thumped onto Nora Hale's apartment floor. The postmark read St. Ives, Kansas, 2 counties from where her grandmother had lived before she became a line in a missing persons ledger with 1,000 others. Nora slit the tape, folded back the cardboard, and stared at the kind of things that anchor rumors to earth. A metal civil defense siren logbook stamped with the county seal. A palm-sized Kodak Brownie with a torn leather strap. A single reel-to-reel tape labeled in blue fountain pen ink. July 18, 1969, if anyone cares. And a torn Road Atlas page, a circle scratched around a bend of river where no town name appeared. She held the reel between thumb and forefinger. Her grandmother, Ruth Hale, had been 17 that summer. Nora had one photograph of her from a church picnic, laughing at something just out of frame. No graves to visit, no stories people would finish. Don't go digging, her father had told her after too much whiskey. Some holes don't have bottoms. Nora made documentaries for people who liked their monsters housed in budgets and buildings. But this wasn't a pitch. It was a missing wall in the house of her family, sheeted over with silence. She began the way she always did, with paper. FOIA requests, phone calls to retired troopers and the men who had been their rookies, microfilm that smelled like dust and old light. A rumor surfaced on an anonymous board about underground works and another about something called Project GoShock. The rumors felt like heat haze over asphalt, there and not there. The logbook felt different, heavy, official, bored. Monthly siren tests, initials, gasket replacements. Then the entries that made her mouth go dry. 07-18-69, 23-57. Manual test abort, 07-19-69. 002, non-scheduled activation. Pattern 212, 0013. Signal continues, advises shelter in place. 0141. Signal ceases, 0207. Perimeter established in 2-13. Pattern resumed below ambient threshold. Note, felt, not heard. Felt, not heard. The pencil line under those words dug into the paper, as if the hand that wrote it had pressed hard to make the sensation hold. Nora traced the groove and imagined a sound that slipped past ears and went straight to bone. 2 long pulses, 1 short, like the rhythm a tired heart might knock against a ribcage. The Brownie held 8 exposures of nothing much, blurred kids, a bandstand, a fair ribbon, but one frame showed the water tower at the edge of town, white letters climbing its belly. Mar, Arguitium, Auciar, K, a subtle dark patch lay at the base, a shadow that didn't belong to the angle of the sun. On the atlas page in the box, the water tower's coordinates had been circled. In the margin, the same blue ink had written a single instruction. Down. Nora needed a machine for the reel. The only shop that had one smelled like Bakelite and mildew. Radios with Bakelite teeth lined a wall. Televisions with wooden ribs watched from the back. The owner, a woman in a Bowie t-shirt, slid a Revere deck onto the counter and threaded the tape as if combing a child's hair. If it wasn't heat-warped, she said, it'll sing. It sang a kitchen, a chair leg bumped tile, and a clock ticked, the kind of tick you only notice when everything else stops. Then a voice, young and steadying itself. July 18th, Daddy says this is silly, so I'm recording it to prove him wrong. Nora didn't know how she knew it, but she knew. Ruth. Off mic, another laugh, high and bright. We got a postcard from Uncle Ray. He says he can hear the ocean at night. I think that must sound like a train. 15 minutes of small sounds and summer air later, the room on the tape changed shape. A distant howl shouldered through and fell away. Silence pressed down like a hand over a mouth. Ruth stopped in the middle of a sentence. In that breathless gap, something rose that wasn't siren or wind. Two long, one short, not loud. So present. The hair on Nora's arms lifted. You can't record a feeling, she told herself. But the deck translated the pressure into magnetized rust in a way her bones never forgot. Ruth returned, voice smaller. Mr. Talley says it's a test, and we should go to the canning room. Mama says bring the radio. I can't find the cat. A door creaked, the rattle of a loose screen. If anyone listens to this, we aren't leaving. Don't let them say we ran. Static chewed the tape. Nora rewound 3 times and drove the volume to the edge of feedback. Under the pulse and Ruth's breath hit another sound, thin and dry, like numbers whispered through teeth. 4, 3, 2. The tape clipped, as if a cord had been yanked from a wall. She stared at the atlas page. Circle. Water tower. Down. Proof is a thing you can hold, and sometimes it tells you where to go next. Twilight found her on a county road that pretended to dead end at soybeans. The state property 42 fence had folded along its welds, and deer, or people, had made a low gap through ragweed and switchgrass. She parked under cottonwoods, set her phone to scan airband and county, and stepped through. The corn breathed around her in slow, wind-borne exhalations. Lightning insects stitched green punctuation through the dark. The water tower rose from meadow brush like a fossil vertebra. Sheets of paint had peeled back in curls, but the ghost letters still showed when clouds slid from the moon. Beneath the bowl, the ground had a geometry the prairie hadn't invented. Concentric rings of poured concrete and a rectangle of pavers that didn't match the local stone. Someone had brought them here. Someone had laid them by hand. Nora crouched and brushed away seed husks. A hairline seam ran between 2 pavers. When she pressed her palm to it, a faint tick could beat against her skin, as if something small and patient lived on the far side. Her phone popped with a carrier squawk. A sound bled through the tiny speaker. 2 long, 1 short, thin as wire, steady as a metronome. Cicadas in the trees hushed as if a hand had closed over them. Somewhere beyond the sorghum, a light blinked once, twice, then held on the third as if answering. Nora slid a flat pry bar from her backpack and levered at the seam. Stone shifted, rasping against stone. Cold air breathed up, not the sweet temperature of soil, but a metallic basement cold threaded with the faint sweetness of machine oil. She worked 1 paver free, then another. Beneath them she found steel, flush with concrete, poured with age. Scratches cross-hatched the surface, some shallow, some gouged deep enough to shine raw. A recessed handle waited under grime. She set her recorder app live. July 2nd, 2341. Water Tower Foundation, former Merrill Creek. Found a buried hatch. Evidence of tool marks and what looked like claw marks. Initiating entry. Her voice sounded steadier than her hands felt. The handle fought, stuck with rust and time, then gave with a sound like a nail being pulled from bone. The lid lifted 1/2 inch and stuck again. She wedged the pry bar deeper, braced a boot, and hauled. The hatch buckled free and snapped open, slamming metal against concrete with a report that ran out through the field. The night listened. Even the breeze seemed to pause, as if waiting to learn what it should move next. Her phone's light poured into the square. A ladder fell away into dark, not earth-cut, but corrugated steel, a throat spiraling down. The air tasted like pennies. Far below, something hummed, not a motor, not quite. More like power deciding whether it wanted to be sound. She leaned closer. In the black under the lip, the pulse answered again, 2 long, 1 short, not through her speaker now, but through metal, a vibration in the rim under her fingers. It traveled up her arms and into the place behind her teeth. Her jaw ached with it. On the atlas margin, The blue ink had said one word: down. From the edge of the trees, the light blinked once more. 1, 2, long 3, and somewhere under her hand a lock unlatched with a mechanical sigh, as if the facility itself had been waiting for its name to be spoken out loud after half a century of silence. Nora slid her legs over the hole, feeling for the first rung, and the hatch frame ticked once like a clock realizing it had been wound. She looked at the dark, at the ladder, at the empty field that had learned to keep a secret, and she said out loud to steady herself. Proof. Then she took a breath that tasted of rust and storm and started down. The ladder rattled under Nora's weight. Rust ground against rust, flakes breaking free and drifting into the black. 20 feet down, the hatch mouth shrank into a dull gray coin above her head. When it swung shut with a hollow clang, darkness swallowed her whole. Only the cone of her phone's flashlight kept the air from becoming endless. The corrugated steel shaft smelled of mildew and burnt wiring. An odor like rainwater funneled through the copper pipes. Nora counted her steps. 10 rungs, 20, 30. At 35, her boot landed on solid ground. A corridor lined with sheet metal riveted into place. The seams sweated cold moisture. Drops ticked from the ceiling, each landing too loud in the hush. Her beam landed on stenciled paint along the wall. USACE property. Project Goshawk. The letters bled rust at the edges, but they were still legible, still official. Nora's stomach clenched. She had seen the word Goshawk whispered on a forgotten message board, dismissed it as lunatic fantasy, and now here it was in government font, older than her. The corridor split in two. Left, the faint hum of machinery. Right, silence. She went left. Her boots echoed on grated flooring until she reached double doors flaked with peeling hazard yellow. She pushed. Hinges screamed in protest and then relented. A control room lay beyond, preserved like a relic of a different century. Steel desks bolted to the floor, rotary phones asleep in cradles. Banks of cathode ray monitors stared at her with blank glass faces. In the center, a desk still held a clipboard sealed inside a cloudy plastic sleeve. Nora lifted it. The paper beneath was lined, stamped with dates and initials. Her throat tightened at the final entry, 07-1969. 02-11. Phase 2 activation. Town status contained. Subject transfer initiated. She whispered the words, almost not daring to read them. Contained transfer. Sterile language, but her mind translated anyway. Contained meant gone. Transfer meant taken. She snapped photos with her phone, the flash ricocheting off metal surfaces. Evidence, she told herself. Heavy proof, the kind of thing you couldn't bury under hearsay. Then the hum thickened. It wasn't machinery. It was slower, deliberate. A vibration pulsing through the air ducts, the ladder behind her, the bones of her face. 2 long, 1 short. The pulse. Her flashlight jittered in her hand. She whispered into her recorder. The signal is still active. Facility is not abandoned. A glint at the far wall pulled her beam. Another door stood there, smaller, with bold black letters stenciled across. Shelter C. Personnel access only. Its metal was newer than the rest, edges unmarred by decades of damp. But the surface bore gouges, long vertical scratches, as though something had raked from the inside trying to get out. Nora approached, pulse hammering in her throat. She reached for the latch. From the ladder shaft behind her, a sound dropped like a stone through water. Her name. Nora. The syllables slithered down the corridor, quiet but clear, spoken in a voice that should have been impossible. Her grandmother's voice. Ruth's. Nora's breath faltered. She spun, light slicing the hall, but the ladder shaft yawned empty, her beam lost before it hit the hatch mouth far above. Only the echo of the name remained, settling into silence like dust. She pressed her back to the cold wall, chest heaving. Impossible. That tape was from 1969. Ruth never lived past that night. This is memory, not sound. But memory doesn't call you by name in a sealed underground corridor. The pulse surged again. Harder. 2 long, 1 short. The metal trembled with it. This time she felt it in her stomach, a queasy resonance that made her bones ache. Her phone screen spasmed with static, a dozen white lines crawling down before blacking out entirely. When the glow returned, a new notification pulsed across the display. Incoming transmission. Line open. Nora's thumb hovered. She hadn't connected to anything. There was no service this far down. Yet words scrolled, jagged and slow. We didn't leave. Her throat locked. She staggered toward Shelter C, needing the solidity of the door, something real to hold. She gripped the latch. It was cold, almost biting, as if the metal had been stored in ice. She yanked. The door shrieked open. Inside, her beam swept across rows of bunks bolted to the walls. Mattresses collapsed into yellow foam, springs curled like ribs. In the center sat a table dusted with years of damp, paper cups melted to its surface. Against the far wall hung a chalkboard. The chalk still clung, unblurred, words written in harsh strokes. Stay low, don't listen. Nora's hands shook as she lifted her phone to photograph. The camera app failed again, screen filled with dancing static. In the interference, faint shapes formed. 3 figures standing side by side. They flickered and were gone. She lowered the phone, breath ragged. On the floor by the table leg, a wooden toy horse leaned on its side. Its paint blistered, but one wheel turned when she nudged it. Beneath it, wrapped in brittle plastic, a notebook waited. She peeled it open. A girl's handwriting, careful but trembling. July 19th, 1969. They said, keep quiet. Daddy says the sound is inside us now. Mama prays, but it comes through the prayers too. If anyone finds this, don't stay. Don't follow it down. The ink trailed in scratches. Below it, another hand, slanted, desperate. They are taken in 3s. Her chest tightened. She stuffed the notebook into her bag. Proof. The pulse boomed once more, louder, the walls themselves trembling. Lights embedded in the quarter ceiling, bulbs she thought long dead, flickered alive in stuttering chains. One by one they hummed to life, pulling a path deeper into the facility. And from somewhere down that lit corridor, the voice called again, clearer this time. Nora, come down. The corridor light steadied into a dim river that ran away from Shelter C. Fluorescence buzzed with that hospital insect sound, and the pulse threaded through the hum, 2 long, 1 short, as if the building were breathing with someone else's lungs. Nora lifted her recorder. Time code 0047. Facility power is partially live. Unknown source. Guidance lights just activated in sequence. Saying it out loud kept panic from spilling into the parts of her that still needed both hands. She followed the lights. Beyond the control room, a wider hall opened on glass-fronted labs. Inside, rusted racks slept under gauze yellow sheeting. A centrifuge wore a fur of dust. The faucet neck of a safety shower sagged like a tired question mark. On a clipboard by the door, a curled work order waited beneath cracked acetate. Helmholtz Array Cal, 07-1869 evening. In the margin, someone had drawn 3 small boxes and shaded 2 of them in. 2 long, 1 short. Behind the lab, a windowless space held rows of metal lockers. Their doors bore stenciled names smudged thin by damp. K. Rudd, J. Talley, H. Morrow. The siren log's initials turned into people. Nora tried a door. Hinges sighed and the smell of old soap and paper rolled out. A canvas bag slumped from a hook. Inside, she found a folded memo stamped confidential. Maw, Goshawk, the paper stiff as toast. The subject line chewed her eyes even as she told herself to read slow. Subject, Phase 2 protocol, population containment, acoustic conditioning. Paragraphs marched beneath, written in that bored bureaucrat tempo that pretends it's not describing nightmares. Upon unscheduled activation, all subjects within operational radius will experience non-audible stimulus, felt, not heard. Phase 2 introduces homing pattern, 212, to encourage sheltering. Personnel to initiate transfer via lower conduits when decibel proxy falls below ambient threshold. Nora lowered the memo like it was hot. Homing, not evacuation, allure. Her phone chimed, a tiny, cheerful sound made obscene by the place. The screen crawled with blocky text again, as if a badly tuned terminal had possessed her handset. Line open door unlocked, come down. She looked back the way she had come. The ladder shaft was a black coin lodged in the hall's throat. Between her and escape, the lights glowed in pairs and singles, like the pulse rendered in plastic. She thumbed off the message, stuffed the memo into her pack. If this was a trap, it had waited 56 years with the patience of a glacier. The guidance lights led to a T-junction and a signboard with slide-in letters. Transfer. B-level to the left. Maintenance. Pumps to the right. Below the arrows, a pegboard showed rows of holes labeled with three-letter blocks. CO1, CO2, CO3. Most pegs were missing. A grease pencil note slashed across the bottom edge. Account by threes. She turned left. The hallway narrowed, walls closing in. Conduit lines ran like veins overhead. At knee height, a box trolley track gleamed under a scurf of dust, its twin rails disappearing into a door with a wheel crank. The wheel was painted hazard yellow. Beneath it, a placard. Transfer gallery. Authorized personnel only. Nora braced and turned the wheel. It fought, then surrendered an inch, fought again, then let go with a judder that vibrated through her arms. The door eased inward on tired lungs. Cold air climbed her sleeves. Beyond, a long chamber yawned. The gallery, its far end vanishing into a throatful of dark. Metal carts sat mothballed on the trolley line, draped in canvas. The cloth had slumped into the spaces where once there had been angles. Each cart was numbered in grease pencil, and the numbers came in trios. 17A, 17B, 17C, 18A, 18B, 18C. The floor between the rails was scored by thousands of small, purposeful scratches, like shoes or bare feet, or both. Nora's beam found a PA speaker bolted to a column. Its grill was dented, paint flaking. Under it, a key switch waited, set to local. An index card had been taped beneath, edges furred with time. In tidy handwriting, if tone persists, set PA to counter and hold for 5 beats. Counter had been underlined twice. The pulse walked its dull knuckles up her spine again. 2 long, 1 short. Without allowing herself the kindness of thinking, Nora flicked the switch to counter and pushed the talk button. Her voice came back to her an instant later through other speakers deeper in the gallery, thin and brave and absurd. Testing. The pulse hit the wall of her word and stuttered. For a heartbeat, the room felt larger, less tight. Then the pattern returned, stronger, as if offended. She released the switch, lungs empty. Her recorder caught the smallest tremor in her breath and filed it under timecode like an accusation. Counter PA appears to interfere with the pattern, she whispered. Effect temporary. Canvas rustled. She swung the beam. One of the tarps lifted at the edge, then flopped on back like a breath settling into sleep. She took a step closer. Another. The tarp's shape suggested a boxy mass, generator, gurney. She hooked a finger in the canvas hem and peeled it away. Underneath lay a metal transfer cradle, rails and straps, and a padded deck. The kind of thing built to move something living without leaving marks. The padding bore 3 shallow depressions where weight had learned to wait. She let the tarp fall. Her hands had gone cold inside her gloves, the kind of cold that comes from inside. A shadow moved at the far end of the gallery, not a human shape, a density, the feeling of someone standing in a doorway you hadn't noticed. Her beam searched and found only the curve of the chamber and the suggestion of a door set low into the wall, half the size of a person door, with a rectangle of glass at a child height. The glass was opaque with mineral bloom. Behind it, something pressed, a smear like the heel of a hand. A whisper slithered through the PA, not through counter, through local, even though the switch sat right where she'd left it. It was the voice that had called her name, pitched younger than any voice she had ever loved. Don't listen, it breathed. Stay low. Nora's throat closed. She stepped toward the child-height door. A plate above the frame read, Staging. 3 light sockets crouched over the plate. 2 bulbs were burned to chalk. The third pulsed, 1, 2, short, bent to the rhythm like a will bent too long. She wiped the glass with her sleeve. Her beam pushed through just enough to find letters on the far wall, written big to be seen from anywhere. White chalk still bright after 5 wet decades. Don't answer. Her phone vibrated in her pocket like a trapped insect. She dragged it out. The terminal text marched. Counter is wrong. They come when you come when you speak, come down. Who are you? She asked the dark, hating how small it sounded. The lights in the gallery ticked and dimmed and steadied as if thinking. The PA breathed once, drawing air into lungs that shouldn't exist, and a different voice came through, older, smoked with cigarettes and authority. Sergeant K. Rudd from the siren log, or his echo. All units, proceed to Phase 2, account by threes. If subjects resist, maintain pattern until compliant. Do not open staging until instructed. Under the words, something else moved, not footsteps. A shuffle like cloth on concrete, multiplied, offset by seconds, like three people changing their minds in unison, but not at the same time. It came from beyond staging. Nora set her palm to the little door. Cold flooded the bones of her hand, the way metal steals heat faster than air has time to argue. The latch was simple, a sliding bolt that someone had painted over. The paint had cracked like a long-peeled sunburn. She could force it. She knew she could. A small push, and whatever lay behind would no longer be behind. The pulse hit hard enough to wobble her knees. Two long, one short. The bulbs over staging thrummed. In the far wall, a square yawned that had not been there a second before. An elevator gate easing up of its own accord, motor purring, numbers flicking down on a dial she hadn't noticed. C, B, and then nothing, a blank line where a letter should have been. Air came from that opening, colder than the rest, edged with the electric smell of ozone, and the sweet rot of paper rained on and dried and rained on again. And threaded through it, faint but undeniable, a count, not over tape this time, not remembered, spoke as if by a mouth placed somewhere below the floor. 4, 3. Her recorder captured the numbers. Her pulse answered with its own small human panic. Nora looked from the bolt at child height to the gate that shouldn't have opened, to the guidance lights pointing down like fingers. Her phone screen blinked, then flooded white with one line. If you open staging, they'll know you're here. The elevator gate finished lifting and waited, mouth open, offering a descent into a level the signage refused to name. The count continued, soft and patient and unavoidable. 2. The voice counting in the dark was not loud, but it carried the weight of inevitability. 2. The syllable curled through the gallery, bouncing off metal, burrowing into marrow. Nora froze, one hand on the bolt of the child-sized door, the other clutching her phone like a charm against a storm. The elevator gate waited across the chamber, yawning wide. Its brass lattice gleamed faintly in her beam, a rib cage holding its breath. Above it, the dial still showed nothing, no floor, no number, only a blank void where designation should live. The pulse struck again. 2 long, 1 short. The bulbs over staging guttered and hummed. The chalk letters beyond the opaque glass, "Don't answer," seemed to swell with each flicker. Nora whispered into the recorder, her voice thin. Time code 0112. Unmarked descent shaft has opened in transfer gallery. Elevator active. Unknown power source. I'm hearing a live count from below. Matches the anomalous whisper on the 1969 tape. Risk of exposure acknowledged. Her voice steadied as she recited, but inside her chest the steadiness cracked. They'll know you're here, the terminal text had warned. Who were they? The missing townspeople? Soldiers? Something in between? The count breathed again, softer. 1, then silence, vast and heavy, waiting for her choice. Nora stepped away from the child-height bolt. Whatever pressed against the little window could stay there. If Ruth had written, "Don't answer," if chalk still glared 50 years later, maybe warning sometimes mattered. The elevator exhaled a hiss as if approving. Its gate shivered against its track. She tightened her grip on the phone and crossed the gallery. The floor scored with thousands of scratches whispered under her boots. Her beam wobbled over tarps, straps, depressions where bodies had once lain. She reached the gate. The platform inside was steel mesh, worn smooth by use. A control box crouched beside the door with 2 buttons only. Down and counter. Down gleamed faint green. Counter was dead. Its bulb cracked like an eye. Nora raised the recorder. Unmarked lift with functional down control. Counter appears disabled. Her thumb hesitated over the button. Every instinct screamed to climb back up the ladder, to drag the hatch closed, to salt the earth. But instinct had never filled holes in family stories. Proof did. She pressed down. The gate rattled shut behind her, sealing like teeth. The motor growled awake, gears chewing air. The floor lurched. The gallery slid upward, retreating. Steel ribs shuddered past, then darkness consumed even them. The descent was not smooth. It jolted in small increments, pausing as though the mechanism checked her resolve. Each pause came with the pulse, two long, one short, thudding through the cage. Nora braced knees against mesh and whispered to herself, "It's just machinery, just resonance." But her jaw ached with the vibration, her molars clattering like reluctant Morse. Minutes bled. The dial above the gate stayed blank. No floors, no markers, just emptiness. Yet her phone buzzed with the location alerts, impossible underground. Level reached account, 3 waiting. She killed the screen, stuffed the device in her pocket, and clutched the recorder instead. At last, the cage sighed to a halt. The gate lurched open with the patience of an old man rolling up from a chair. Nora lifted her light. The corridor ahead was narrower, concrete pressed close, pipes veining the ceiling. Fluorescents still worked here, but their glow was sickly, jaundiced. On the wall, a placard bent with age read, "B level. Induction. Induction." The word coiled wrong. She moved forward, every footstep amplified by walls that wanted her noticed. Doorways opened on rooms like classrooms stripped of children. Rows of chairs bolted to floors, speakers dangling overhead. Some chairs were overturned, others strapped with cracked leather restraints. On a chalkboard at the front of one, a single word remained after decades. Listen. Nora's hand trembled as she snapped photos. The chalk squeaked in her imagination. Her grandmother's age 17 scrawl layered with orders she never gave. From deeper in the hall, metal dragged against concrete. Not footsteps, something heavier, pulled. The sound paced itself to the pulse. 2 long scrapes, 1 short. She flattened against the wall, light doused, breath tight. The drag came closer, closer, until she could taste iron on her tongue, sharp and penny bitter. The corridor's fluorescence flickered as if the thing drew power just by existing. Then it stopped. Silence drowned the hall. Nora risked a glance. At the far end stood a door taller than the others, its surface scorched, paint blistered away. Above it, stencil letters screamed in black. Transfer terminal. Authorized only. The drag marks ended at its base, deep grooves etched like protest. A vent above her head whispered open. Cold air poured down, carrying not ozone but breath. Warm, human, close. A whisper seeped through, urgent, female, younger than her own voice. Don't let them count you. Nora's skin crawled. She swung her light into the vent. Nothing but black ribs of ductwork, sighing. Her phone buzzed alive again despite airplane mode. One new message blinked across the dark screen. Count Inum. The pulse answered, shaking the floor. And somewhere beyond the transfer terminal door, something answered back. The message still burned across Nora's screen. Count equal 1 before the display went black. She tapped the glass, but the phone was lifeless. Its battery drained in an instant. Her breath fogged the dead screen, and the silence behind her heartbeat thickened into a waiting shape. The corridor funneled her forward. Every step toward the scorched door felt like walking deeper into a throat that wanted to close. The grooves on the floor, those long gouges leading to the threshold, caught her boots like accusations. She set her recorder live again. Time code 0136. Reached B-level transfer terminal. Evidence of dragging consistent with mass movement. Door appears heat damaged. Her voice steadied only because she made it. The hand holding the flashlight shook enough that the beam jittered across the blistered paint. She braced, shoved the door. Hinges groaned, giving inch by inch until the gap widened enough for her to slip through. The transfer terminal stretched like an aircraft hangar, buried alive. The ceiling arched overhead in steel ribs, fluorescence dead but for a scatter of trembling bulbs. Along each wall, loading bays with rusted tracks, each numbered in trios, 21A, 21B, 21C. The numbers marched into darkness, a catalog of vanished lives. In the center ran a conveyor belt wide enough to move crates or coffins. Dust lay thick, but her beam revealed indentations, prints not of wheels, but of feet. Dozens, hundreds, bare and shod, small and large, pressed into the dust like fossils of a night that had not ended. She forced herself closer. On the belt lay a crate, half collapsed, canvas cover shredded. Inside, padded straps lay unbuckled. A paper tag dangled from the side, ink blurred but legible. Subject 42C. Her throat tightened. Subjects, not citizens. She snapped photos, the flash cutting white scars across the dark. Then the pulse came again. 2 long, 1 short. The sound didn't just vibrate the walls. It rolled through the terminal floor, a ripple under her boots. The dust trembled. The crate rattled. At the far end of the hall, something answered, not echo, response. A deeper pulse, heavier, like a drumbeat answering a knock. Nora ducked behind the crate. Her recorder caught her whisper. Responsive signal detected from below terminal. Not mechanical. She almost choked on the word. Not mechanical. The fluorescence above stuttered. Then, with a groan of old gears, the conveyor belt lurched to life. Dust shook free in gray clouds. The belt dragged the empty crate toward a gaping hatch at the terminal's far end. The hatch's edges glowed faint orange, as if fire lived below. Nora's hands balled into fists. If the machinery was still alive, something was still feeding it. Her gaze snagged on a small office perched above the terminal floor, glass panes smeared with age. A staircase wound up the side. She bolted for it, boots clanging against steel. Each step rattled with the pulse beneath. Inside the office was a ball of paper ghosts, filing cabinets, half open, drawers swollen with damp, a desk strewn with faded memos. On the wall hung a map of Merrill Creek, red circles pinned at the school, the church, the water tower. Across the bottom margin, a thick greased pencil note screamed, Phase 2, au success. Prepare for transfer. Nora's hands shook as she photographed it. Then she saw the reel recorder on the desk, twin reels still threaded with brittle tape. A label scrawled across its side read, Induction Session 7/18/69, Archive. She pressed play. At first, silence, hiss, the faint crackle of microphone dust. Then a man's voice, stern, deliberate. Subject Group 12, begin conditioning. A tone swelled, not siren, not hum, but the exact pulse. 2 long, 1 short. Voices overlapped under it. Some prayed, some cried, some counted along as if compelled. Then a girl's voice cut through, sharp, desperate. Stop! It's inside us! It's... The tape snapped to silence, spliced, continued with the man's voice again. Subject Group 12, non-compliant, initiating transfer. Metallic groans followed, the scrape of many feet. A low moan, collective, rising into static as the tape chewed itself into blank hiss. Nora's eyes burned. She hit stop. The machine clicked like a coffin shutting. Below, the conveyor belt ground louder, dragging its crate into the orange glow. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, though it was dead. The screen blinked on. A single new line. Count equals 2. Her knees wobbled. She stared at the conveyor swallowing the crate, at the black mouth yawning firelight. From the glass wall of the office, she saw a movement on the terminal floor. A shadow peeled itself from the ranks of loading bays, unfolding like someone standing after waiting too long. Then another, and another. 3 shapes. They moved together, halting, jerky, yet synchronized by that awful rhythm. Dust puffed under each step. Faces stayed in shadow, features unreadable, but their heads turned toward her in unison. The PA crackled above her. A voice breathed through, the same impossible echo of Ruth. 17 forever. Don't let them finish the count. The pulse slammed the floor. 2 long, 1 short. The shapes below paused, waiting, and then began to climb the stairs toward her. The stairwell groaned with weight not her own. Nora backed against the office desk, flashlight beam jittering across peeling paint and dust-warped memos. The 3 shapes climbed in rhythm, halting at each landing as though waiting for permission. The pulse thudded again, two long, one short, and each knock of sound pulled the figures another step higher. Their heads snapped up in unison. No faces, only density, as if Shadow had been given knees and shoulders. Yet the floorboards flexed under them. They were not illusions. Nora snatched the reel recorder. Proof mattered, even if she never got out. She shoved it into her pack, clipped the flap, and edged toward the door. The glass pane beside her spidered. A handprint bloomed in frost on the inside. Not hers. The print lingered pale and human, small as a teenager's. Her breath misted against it. The impossible whisper threaded through the crackle of the PA again. Stay low, don't listen. The pulse struck. The figures advanced another step. Nora bolted. She crashed through the office door, boots hammering steel stairs down the far side. The terminal floor yawned open, cavernous, conveyor belt grinding crates into orange firelight. Dust burned her throat. Behind, the three figures quickened, no longer halting, feet pounding the metal with unnatural cadence. She sprinted across the hangar, beam flailing. Loading bay doors blurred past, each numbered in threes. The count was climbing, she knew, at a meter tallying lives in some invisible ledger. She had to break it. A smaller door waited at the far wall, half hidden behind stacks of tarps. She slammed it open and tumbled into a side corridor. Darkness swallowed her whole, but here the pulse was weaker, distant, muffled. Her recorder picked up her ragged voice. Time code 0204. Evaded pursuit. 3 entities visible. Pattern linked. Attempting alternate exit. The hall led her to a chamber that looked nothing like the others. No desks, no crates. Instead, concrete walls hunched around a circle of metal chairs, 30 at least, bolted to the floor. Speakers dangled overhead like vines. On each chair, back a stenciled number in white paint, most rubbed to ghosts. One chair still bore its number clear, 27C. Nora touched the metal. It was cold, too cold, as though the air itself refused to warm it. The straps on the armrests hung open. She imagined bodies slumped here, listening to that bone-deep rhythm, until compliance meant silence. On the floor, a chalk mark curved under the circle of chairs. Words sprawled crooked and uneven. Don't let them reach 3. Her mouth dried. She snapped a photo, though the flash showed nothing but glare and dust. Behind her, the pulse boomed. Closer again, the 3 shapes were following the corridor. She spun, desperate, and saw a maintenance hatch low in the wall, a metal plate with a wheel handle. She heaved it. Rust screamed. The cover fell inward, revealing a crawl space just tall enough for her shoulders. She shoved in, pack-scraping concrete, and pulled the hatch closed behind her. The crawl space reeked of iron and mold. Pipes ran along one side, warm and humming. She crawled, knees bruising, light bouncing from wall to wall. The noise of the pulse dulled behind, but her blood still carried its rhythm. After 20 feet, the tunnel opened into a maintenance gallery. Rusted catwalks spanned a pool of black water. The surface quivered with each vibration. Pumps squatted at the edges, frozen in place. In the center of the pool rose a column of concrete with a steel ladder climbing its flank. At the top, a hatch. Nora swallowed hard. She stepped onto the catwalk. It wobbled but held. Water below reflected her beam in long shards. Halfway across, her phone vibrated against her leg. She yanked it out. The screen glowed weak, almost failing, but words crawled in block letters. Count equals 2, don't become 3. Her breath shook. She stuffed the phone back. Then the water rippled. Circles spread outward from the base of the column. Something had moved below, too big to be rat or pipe collapse. A slow bump rattled the catwalk, followed by another, closer. She hurried the last steps, grabbed the ladder, scrambled up. Hands slipped, caught, dragged her higher. She shoved the hatch with her shoulder. It gave. Cold air poured over her. She rolled into a narrow corridor lit by a single flickering bulb. The walls here were raw concrete, dripping, unmarked. The pulse was faint but constant. On the floor lay a pile of paper slips, yellowed and curling. She picked one up. Typed letters. Official. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Goshawk Project. Subject, relocation notes. The date, July 20th, 1969, the day after the town had ended, beneath the heading, Phase 3 to commence. All remaining accounts must be balanced. Unreconciled subjects will be pursued. Accounting cannot stop at 2. Her skin iced. A breath brushed her ear, though the corridor was empty. A girl's whisper, urgent. Run. The bulb popped overhead. Darkness folded in, and from behind the hatch she had crawled through came the hollow echo of feet. 3 sets, climbing fast. The hatch behind Nora clanged as if fists pounded the other side. 3 sets of impacts, staggered but bound together by rhythm. The pulse rattled the corridor, 2 long, 1 short, and the fists answered in time, a syncopated echo that made the concrete vibrate under her boots. She clutched the stack of relocation slips, crammed them into her pack, and stumbled forward. The bulb overhead had died, but her flashlight carved a pale tunnel through dripping walls. The corridor stretched longer than physics liked. Each stride should have carried her closer to its end, yet the door at the far side never seemed nearer. She glanced back. The hatch shivered in its frame, bolts whining. A gap split wide enough to show darkness beyond. Then fingers, black, stretched, curled through, 3 hands aligning on the metal as if rehearsed. Her throat dried. She ran. The door at the corridor's end loomed, sudden, as though it had been waiting for her to notice. Stenciled paint announced archive, authorized only. She shoved, shoulder cracking against rust. The door opened into a vault of paper and film. Boxes climbed in columns, their cardboard skins spotted by damp. Metal shelves bowed under binders swollen thick with water damage. In the center, a wooden desk sagged, drawers yawning. On its surface sat reels of microfilm, each labeled with military neatness. Nora's beams swept across dates. Joel 18, 1969. Joel 19, 1969. Joel 20, 1969. She grabbed but one reel held it to the light. The label read, Induction Footage, School Assembly. Her hands shook. She dug in the drawers until she found a microfilm reader, its glass cracked but intact. She jammed the reel into place, cranked. The machine whined alive. The film stuttered through. At first, the inside of a gymnasium. Bleachers, rows of townspeople seated, heads tilted slightly as if listening to something overhead. The footage had no sound, but she could feel the pulse in her bones regardless. On the screen, children sat in threes, parents beside them, all hands folded, faces serene. At the front, a man in uniform spoke into a PA. His mouth moved in orders she could not hear, but every head nodded in unison. Frame by frame, a chalkboard appeared behind him. Scrawled words filled it. Phase 2, listen. Then the reel snapped white, melted at the edges, film sizzling in its track. Smoke curled up. Nora yanked the reel free, dropped it to the floor. Her flashlight beam struck a file drawer labeled Personnel Records. Rudd, Tally, Morrow. She pulled. Paper slid, soggy and stinking. At the back, sealed in a wax envelope, a slim notebook waited. She tore it open. Inside, typed minutes of a meeting. Subject response to acoustic conditioning. Exceeds projections. Containment confirmed. Transfer scheduled. Note: accounting must be maintained by 3s. 2 is incomplete. 3 is balance. Her pulse pounded. The words blurred. Balance, dinos. Not lives, numbers. As though the town had been math, not flesh. The vault lights buzzed. A PA speaker hidden in the ceiling coughed awake. Then a man's voice, old tape grain thick in it. Phase 3 initiated. Subjects unreconciled will be sought. Protocol demands completion. The shelves rattled. Paper avalanche from boxes. Dust choked her lungs. She staggered toward the back wall, where a stairwell spiraled upward. She bolted, feet hammering metal. Halfway up, she heard the archive door shatter open. 3 sets of feet entered, heavy and wet, dragging sound up the stairwell behind her. She climbed faster, lungs scraping. At the top, she burst into a low concrete hall. On its wall, painted letters, Level C, Housing. The housing wing spread like a dormitory, Long corridors lined with doors, each stenciled with numbers. CO1, CO2, CO3, marching endlessly. Some stood ajar, revealing glimpses of beds bolted to the floors, toys fossilized in rot, furniture arranged in perfect threes. Her beam swept one room. On a dresser sat 3 dolls, all missing their eyes. On the wall, chalk letters again. We were accounted. Her phone buzzed though it was dead. The screen lit with new text. Count A2. Seek balance. The corridor lights flickered. From the far end, shadows thickened, rolling toward her like a tide. Nora stumbled into the nearest room, slammed the door, braced it with her body. The pulse boomed through the walls. The floor hummed. On the desk beside the eyeless dolls lay a diary. Its cover leather, its lock snapped. She grabbed it, flipped pages filled with teenage handwriting. The words screamed at her in loops of ink. They came in threes. They called it balance. We are waiting for the next to arrive. Don't listen. Don't answer. Her chest clenched. She snapped photos in case she didn't survive to hold the book itself. Outside the door, 3 fists pounded in rhythm with the pulse. 2 long, 1 short. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then silence. Through the crack at the floor, she saw 3 sets of bare feet stop. Wait. Her phone buzzed again. The message seared her eyes. Count 8, 3. The words on her phone burned white in the dark. Count is 3. Nora dropping the device as if it had turned molten. The screen cracked against concrete, but the glow didn't die. It only pulsed with the same rhythm she felt in her jaw. 2 long, 1 short. Outside the door, silence settled like ash. She pressed her ear to the wood. No breath, no shuffle, nothing. Just the quiet after numbers click into place. Her recorder caught her whisper. Time code 0229. Balance reached. Entities halted. Door intact. Investigating. Her own voice felt brittle and 1 gust away from breaking. She eased the latch. The hallway stretched, doors staring back in their neat rows. The 3 pairs of feet she had seen under the crack were gone. Dust still trembled in the air, stirred by movement seconds old. She stepped out. The corridor lights buzzed and steadied. For the first time since entering the facility, the pulse did not follow. She could almost believe the silence was natural. Almost. She advanced, flashlight beam brushing each door. CO4, CO5, CO6. Every 3rd room bore a chalk mark across the frame. 3 short slashes stacked vertical. Inside each marked room, the furniture sat in sets of 3. 3 chairs, 3 cups, 3 beds. One room still held 3 shoes lined neatly at the foot of a cot, laces untied, as if waiting for feet that never returned. At the corridor's end, she found a double door. Overhead stencils spelled Canteen, Group Induction. She shoved through. The canteen was cavernous, long tables bolted to the floor. Plates still lay in triplets, rusted utensils beside them. On the far wall, a mural remained, paint cracked but visible. A hunting bird with wings spread, talons clutching the word, Go Shock. Nora's light found another chalkboard. Across it, in huge strokes, account balanced, transfer ready. Her knees buckled. She clutched the edge of a table, bile climbing her throat. The town hadn't vanished. It had been tallied, reduced to arithmetic and processed like freight. On the floor beneath the chalkboard sat a real canister. She picked it up, brushed dust away. Label Final Session, July 1969. She hesitated, then loaded it into the portable deck she had salvaged. The reels turned, tape whispering. Voices filled the canteen, captured ghosts spilling back. Men issuing orders, the townsfolk murmuring prayers. Then the pulse, low, inhuman, woven through. A man's voice, perhaps Tally's, intoned. Subject groups complete, balance achieved. Proceed with phase 3. A roar followed, not of machines but of people, dozens crying out at once. Then silence, so sudden it tore the breath from her lungs. The tape cut, the reel spun blank. From the far end of the canteen came a sound. Chairs scraping. 3 at once, she swung her beam. At the last table, 3 figures sat. They had not been there before. Their faces were blurred, as if the light refused to outline them. Yet their posture was unmistakable, waiting. The pulse returned, faint but steady, two long, one short. Nora staggered backward. Her boot struck something on the floor. She bent, lifted a paper slip. It bore her grandmother's name in typed block letters. Hale Ruth, Subject 17B. Her chest clenched. Her grandmother had been one of the three. She stuffed the slate into her pack and bolted from the canteen. The corridor twisted into a new wing. On the wall, a painted arrow pointed downward. Level D, transfer staging. The air grew colder as she descended. Concrete walls dripped condensation. Pipes rattled with phantom water. The pulse grew stronger, as though the facility's heart lived below. At the bottom of the stairwell, a massive blast door waited, its surface pitted with burns. Across it, someone had scrawled with chalk in frantic strokes, "Don't open until they call your name." Nora's breath hitched. She stepped closer, beam quivering across letters written decades ago, but still bright as bone. Her phone, though cracked and dying, buzzed once more. On its fractured screen, new words flickered. Count reset, balance broken. From behind the blast door, a metallic groan rumbled. Bolts twitched. A voice whispered through, the same impossible echo of Ruth. "Nora, it's your turn." The blast door shuddered again, bolts twitching in their sockets like teeth loosening in an old jaw. Nora pressed her back to the stairwell wall, breath ragged, beam fixed on the chalk scrawl. "Don't open until they call your name." Her name had just been called. The metal groaned, a hinge protesting after decades of silence. A seam split down the middle, coughing dust. Air hissed through, cold, metallic, heavy with the tang of ozone. Her flashlight halo caught flecks swirling like ash. Nora raised her recorder. Time code 0251, blast door is cycling open, voice resembling Ruth Hale audible, summoning by name. Warning inscription contradicts action. Decision point, observe before entering. The seam widened. The door lurched, dragging itself inward with a cough of gears. Beyond stretched a corridor painted in light that was not fluorescent. The glow was amber, alive, pulsing in time with the pattern that had stalked her from the first reel. Two long, one short. She stepped through. The staging chamber was vast, larger than the transfer terminal above. Its floor dipped in a shallow amphitheater, tiered platforms arranged in concentric rings. Each ring held three cradles, padded and strapped, angled toward the center like pews before an altar. At the heart of the chamber stood a pillar of glass, fissured, stained with decades of condensation. Inside swirled light, pale and viscous, as if someone had distilled sound into liquid. Every pulse from the pillar shook the straps on the cradles, rattled bolts in the walls. Her knees weakened. This was the core. Whatever had emptied Marrow Creek, it had happened here. On the nearest cradle, a tag still dangled. She brushed grime away. Subject 17B, Hale Ruth. Her throat closed, fingers trembled over the letters. Proof undeniable. The PA in the chamber flickered alive. A man's voice crackled, blurred with tape hiss but commanding. Staging protocol initiated. Prepare subjects for final balance. Accounting must remain in threes. 2 is incomplete. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, though she hadn't touched it. She pulled it out. Across the fractured screen, count equal 1. She shook her head. No, that's not possible. But the pillar pulsed. 2 long, 1 short. At the far side of the chamber, one of the cradles creaked. Leather straps quivered. Dust cascaded from the padding. Something unseen shifted in its seat. The phone buzzed again. Count equals 2. Nora's stomach clenched. It's not me, she thought. It's tallying something else, filling the numbers. Then the pillar flared. For a second, she swore she saw a figure suspended in the glow. Teenage, hair tied back in a bandana, eyes wide with fear. Ruth, her grandmother at 17, trapped in amber light. Nora staggered forward, hand pressed to glass. The image flickered, dissolved. The pulse struck harder, rattling her teeth. Behind her, the blast door slammed shut. She spun. Bolts clanged into place, sealing her inside. The PA voice returned, calm, bureaucratic, unfeeling. Phase 3 complete, awaiting final subject for balance. Her phone lit. The words scrolled with dreadful patience. Count equals 2 awaiting. 3 from the opposite ring of cradles. Straps snapped tight as if cinched by invisible hands. Dust rose. The padding indented under unseen weight. A whisper bled from the speakers, soft and pleading. Ruth again. Nora, don't let them finish it. Break the count. Nora's pulse hammered against her ribs. 3 was coming. Whatever balance the facility demanded, she was about to complete it. She looked at the cradles, at the glass pillar, at the straps quivering in anticipation. And then her own cradle, the one marked 27C, creaked open as if offering her a seat. The cradle creaked as if breathing, its straps yawning open in invitation. 27C waited, metal gleaming in her flashlight like the grin of a trap. Nora's stomach nodded. Her recorder picked up her whisper. Time code 0312, staging cradle marked 27C, active. System expecting me as third subject. Facility attempting to complete balance. The words steadied her, but the steadiness was borrowed, brittle. The phone in her pocket shivered, buzz after buzz like a panicked heartbeat. She pulled it free. Across the shattered screen scrolled, Count equals 2, seek balance, occupy 27C. Her grip tightened until the glass squealed. She wanted to hurl the device into the pillar, shatter its logic. But the glowing core only pulsed with mechanical patience. 2 long, 1 short. The walls thrummed. She forced her beam across the other cradles. Each bore tags like tombstones, 27A, 27B. The padding bore depressions. Dust clung to the straps where bodies had once strained. Above them, the ceiling showed vent grills. From one grill leaked sound, not quite words. Whispers braided together. Male, female, child. They murmured in threes, overlapping, counting like a chant. Nora turned in circles, heart hammering. She would not sit. She would not complete their math. Her eyes snagged on a service ladder climbing the wall behind the pillar. A hatch gleamed faintly at its top, circular and bolted. An escape? Or just another cell in the hive? She ran for it. Boots skidded on concrete. The chamber pulsed as if offended. Straps on 27C snapping tight, waiting. She leapt onto the ladder, hauled upward. Metal rungs groaned. Halfway up, her phone lit against her thigh. New text blazed, Count equals 3. Her lungs collapsed. She froze. She was not in the cradle. How had the count reached 3? Below, 27C buckled inward as if something unseen had taken the seat. Straps tightened around air. The indent on the padding deepened. She clung to the ladder, bile rising. They didn't need her body. They only needed her presence, her name in the ledger. She had been tallied the moment she entered the chamber. The pillar's glow brightened. Images flickered inside its viscous light. Ruth again, bandana bright, eyes wide. Then others, children clutching hands, men stiff with fear, women bowed in prayer. Faces of the vanished, preserved in molten amber sound. The PA boomed, voice warped but clear. Accounting achieved. Proceed with transfer. The chamber shook. Cradles rattled, straps whipping. The pillar pulsed in violent rhythm, 2 long, 1 short. Faster. Harsher. Dust avalanche from the ceiling. Nora gritted teeth, climbed faster. She reached the hatch, braced shoulder, shoved. It resisted. Bolts frozen. She heaved again. The metal screamed, then cracked open, belching stale air. She scrambled through and rolled into a narrow catwalk high above the staging chamber. Grates groaned beneath her weight. She crawled to the railing. Below, the pillar roared, light flaring white. Cradles convulsed as though filled with invisible occupants. Her phone vibrated one last time. Across its fractured screen, "You are 27C." Her scream lodged silent in her chest. The pillar cracked. From the wound poured not light but sound, liquid sound, a wave of vibration that shook bolts from girders. The chant rose with it, hundreds of voices in triplets, counting, calling. Nora staggered backward along the catwalk. Her recorder still ran, capturing every tremor, every ghost. Closed syllable. She whispered hoarse into it. Phase 3 transfer initiating. I'm inside the count. Proof undeniable. If anyone finds this. Her words drowned in the roar. From the shattered pillar, a hand pressed outward, pale, trembling, dripping with light. It was a girl's hand, too young to belong here. A voice threaded into her skull. Ruth's voice, 17 forever. Nora, break it. The catwalk shivered, bolts popped. She flung herself toward another hatch at the far side, lungs burning. Below, the pillar's glow bled into the cradles, filling them with shapes, faces, every lost resident of Marrow Creek manifesting in sound and amber. Her phone flickered one last message before its battery died for good. Balance locked. Escape or join. The hatch ahead rattled in its frame. She lunged, slammed it open, and crawled into another tunnel as the chamber below erupted in light that did not belong to this earth. The hatch clanged shut behind her, cutting off the blinding glow of the staging chamber. Darkness swallowed everything except the thin beam of her flashlight. Her chest heaved against the concrete floor, the echo of the pulse still throbbing in her teeth. 2 long, 1 short, though she wasn't sure anymore whether it came from the facility or from inside her skull. She crawled. The tunnel was narrow, barely shoulder-wide, pipes running along one side like veins hardened with rust. Each time she brushed them, the vibration rippled through her bones. The pulse had followed her here. Her recorder, still rolling in her pocket, captured her muttered words. Time code 0338. Staging breach behind me. Transfer in progress. I am counted. System believes me occupant 27C. Escaping through service conduit. Unknown destination. The words steadied her, but panic crouched in every breath. After 20 yards, the tunnel angled upward. She clawed at the slope, palms scraping concrete. Her light struck a rusted ladder bolted into the wall. She gripped the rungs and climbed, boots slipping, arms trembling from exhaustion. At the top waited another hatch, smaller, round, its wheel handle stiff with age. She braced her shoulder and turned. The wheel screamed. Metal flakes rained down. With a heave, the hatch popped. Nora shoved it open, climbed through, and froze. She stood on a catwalk, ringing a cavernous shaft. The space was vertical, plunging into blackness below, vanishing into shadow above. Catwalks spiraled the walls like ribs, lit by failing fluorescence. In the center of the shaft hung a column of steel cages, stacked end to end on a chain. Some cages were empty, doors yawning. Others still held silhouettes slumped inside. 3 to a cage. Always 3. Her stomach nodded. The count wasn't theory, it was architecture. She crept along the catwalk, peering down. Chains groaned under unseen weight, swaying with each pulse. 2 long, 1 short. With every beat, the cages shifted slightly, like pendulums keeping time. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Against all logic, the cracked screen glowed again. New words crawled across it. Count reinforced 27C in transit. Nora's pulse hammered. She was moving inside the system, whether her body agreed or not. Across the shaft, another catwalk bore a control platform. Consoles sagged beneath dust. She forced herself around the curve, gripping rusted rails, every step vibrating with the chain's groan. At the console, she brushed dust from switches. Faded labels read, Hoist, Transfer, Override. Below them, a slot held a ledger book, pages warped but legible. She flipped it open. Rows of names marched in tidy block type. Beside each name, columns marked accounted or missing. At line 213, her chest clenched. Hale Ruth, accounted 17B. Lower, her own name had been typed in a different ink, newer, fresher, unnervingly exact. Hale Nora, accounted to 27C. Her knees buckled. Proof undeniable. She had been entered. The PA system crackled. That same flat voice. Phase 3 stabilizing. Subject 27C confirmed. Prepare for external transfer. External transfer. Where? To what? Nora gripped the override lever, desperate. Russ protested. She yanked. Nothing. She slammed her weight into it. The lever shrieked, then wrenched down. The cages below shuddered. Chains screamed. A klaxon howled across the shaft, the first true alarm she had heard. Lights flared red, spinning, painting the cages in bloody sweeps. Figures stirred inside them. Not shadows now, people, thin, sunken, mouths opening. Some raised hands, some pressed faces to bars, all silent. No cries, only the rhythm of their swaying heads. Two long, one short. Nora's throat closed. She forced her recorder up. Override triggered, cages active, occupants visible, appearing human. Her voice cracked. Still under influence of pattern. Then the PA bellowed, harsher, unauthorized action. Override will be corrected. The cages groaned, chains snapping taut. One cage near the top tore loose, shrieking downward, crashing against its neighbors. Steel screamed, sparks fountained. The catwalk under her boots lurched. A rail tore free, screeching over the shaft. Her phone vibrated once more. The screen spat 2 lines before dying completely. Count disrupted correction in progress from below. Something vast stirred in the dark. Not cages, not chains. A deeper movement, like lungs filling. And in the thunder of shifting steel came a single whisper, close enough to freeze her blood. Nora, jump. The shaft roared like a throat filled with metal. Chains screeched. Cages slammed against one another in panicked clatter. Sparks rained down. The catwalk under Nora's boots shivered, bolts whining in their sockets. Her flashlight swung wild, beams slicing glimpses of faces pressed against bars. Men, women, children, silent, eyes vacant, mouths opening and closing in rhythm with the pulse. 2 long, 1 short. The whisper still clung to her ears, jump. Her stomach clenched. Down meant blackness, cages, whatever giant thing had stirred. But staying meant the catwalk tearing loose beneath her. She had no choice. She dropped the recorder into her pocket, clutched the rail, and hurled herself into the shaft. Air crushed her lungs, steel blurred. A rushed past her shoulder, close enough for her sleeve to scrape at its bars. She hit another cage roof hard, pain exploding through her ribs. She sprawled, gasping, clinging to rusted mesh. The cage rocked, chains groaning. Inside, 3 figures stirred. Their faces glowed faint in the red alarm light. She pressed her beam through the bars. The figures were human, too human. Skin wax pale, eyes milked over, lips moving without sound. Their chests rose and fell shallowly. Each one turned their head toward her in unison, 3 pairs of blind eyes fixing her. Their mouths opened wider. A vibration pressed through the bars into her bones. She clamped her jaw, teeth rattling. Her phone buzzed. She yanked it out, screen flickering. New text scrawled across. Count, 1 balance initiated. Her chest seized. They were adding her again. The figures' mouths moved faster, whispering breaths almost audible. Words scraped out like paper tearing. 2, 3, balance. Nora scrambled up the cage roof, clawing for the ladder line that ran along the shaft wall. Another cage crashed free above, plummeting past in shrieking sparks. Heat washed her skin. She leapt, fingers catching the ladder's steel. Pain tore her shoulder, but she clung, climbing. The PA boomed, "Correction underway. Unauthorized subject will be reconciled." A tremor surged from below. The thing in the dark exhaled, a bass note that shook bolts and sent chains rattling like bones. She climbed until her arms screamed. A side hatch yawned ahead, a square cut into concrete. She slammed shoulder into it, wrenching it open. The ladder ended in a spill of dust and stale air. She dragged herself through and collapsed into another corridor. This one was tiled, walls cream once but now stained with damp. Signs still clung above doorways. Medical, quarantine, processing. Her recorder buzzed in her pocket, still live. She forced words out between gulps of air. Time code 0407. Entered medical wing. Cages confirmed with occupants. System correction in progress. Still targeted. She staggered forward. The corridor bent into a ward lined with glass observation rooms. Inside each, cots bolted to floors, restraints dangling. Some cots held mummified remains, shriveled to paper and bone. Others held nothing but dust. One room glowed faintly. She wiped grime from its glass and froze. Inside sat three figures, perfectly preserved, skin taut as sleep. Their chests rose, fell. On their wrists, faded bands read Subject 42A, 42B, 42C. Their lips moved in unison, soundless. She recognized one face from old yearbook photos she had found in her grandmother's attic. A boy Ruth's age who had disappeared with her. Her phone buzzed again, screen jagged with cracks but legible. Count equals 2, awaiting balance. The boy's blind eyes snapped open. His lips whispered one word, Nora. The glass between them spidered. She staggered back. The ward lights guttered, dimmed. The PA spoke again, calm, merciless. Phase 3 will not fail. Accounting is absolute. The hail line will complete balance. Her chest burned. They hadn't just chosen her. They had been waiting for her blood, her family, the missing name in the equation. She stumbled through the ward, pushed through a swinging door into processing. The room reeked of chemicals long evaporated. Tables lined with straps and rusted instruments sat like altars. On the wall, a chalk outline of Merrill Creek stretched, houses marked with X's. At the bottom, in blue fountain pen ink, one line curved beneath the map. The town was the experiment. We were the math. Nora's stomach twisted. She snapped a photo, hands trembling. Behind her, glass shattered. The three preserved subjects had broken free. Their bare feet slapped the tile. Slow, certain. The pulse rolled again, shaking the medical wing. 2 long, 1 short. Her phone screamed new text. Count equals 3. The walls shook. Lights burst, showering sparks. Nora bolted deeper into processing, lungs tearing, chased by the balance she had never agreed to complete. Nora's boots slapped across tiles streaked with old rust. Behind her, the 3 subjects moved in perfect rhythm, feet falling like drum beats to the pulse. 2 long, 1 short. They weren't running. They didn't need to. Their pace was inevitable. She shoved through another set of double doors. Hinges screeched. The beam of her flashlight spilled across a long ward lined with examination tables. Each table bore restraints, some snapped, others cinched tight around nothing. IV stands rusted into place. On one table, a reel recorder slumped in a cradle, its tape stretched and fused. A label dangled, barely legible. Subject 19C, final notes. She stumbled closer, heart hammering. The machine coughed static when she pressed play. Through the hiss came a woman's voice, exhausted, breaking. They said it wasn't death, it was accounting. We weren't leaving, we were ledger lines. Every cry, every prayer, it only finished their math. If you're hearing this, don't let them get 3. Break it, even if it breaks you. The tape snapped. Smoke curled up, acrid. The pulse hit hard. Tables rattled. Instruments clattered to the floor. She jerked her beam toward the door. 3 shadows filled the frosted glass panels. Still waiting, still patient. Her phone buzzed again, cracked screen pulsing. Count equals 3, balance stable. Her throat closed. She bolted to the far end of the ward, slammed through another door. This chamber was stranger. Walls lined with chalkboards, every inch filled with equations. Waveforms sketched in frantic loops, symbols that looked less like science and more like spells. In the corner, an overhead projector still hummed faintly, though no cord fed it. On its glass plate lay a transparency scrawled with blue ink. Project Ghost Shock. Acoustic containment. Subjects equal balance. 3s only. The overhead blinked on by itself. Lighted, cut through the air, splashed the far wall with projected words. Accounting cannot be escaped. Nora stumbled back. Her recorder caught her whisper. Time code 0441. Facility frames containment as mathematics. Balance in 3s enforced acoustically. Project Goshawk is accounting of people. Her flashlight beam jittered across another chalkboard. In childish scrawl, buried under equations, someone had written, "We were homework." Her breath hitched. She snapped a photo. From a side door, a draft whispered. She yanked it open and found herself in a stairwell spiraling down. The air smelled of copper and mold. She descended, steps quick, shoulders brushing clammy walls. At the bottom, a heavy door stenciled, records, long-term storage. She shoved it open. Rows of cabinets stretched into the dark steel drawers yawning like coffins. She pulled one. Folders sagged, labels curling. She flipped pages, throat tight. Each page bore a subject designation. Notes cold as ice. 17B, compliant. 19A, failed transfer. 19B, replaced. 19C, account complete. Her hands trembled. Then her eye snagged a line. 27C, pending, name Hale, Nora, status, awaiting reconciliation. Her breath stuttered. She snapped a photo, proof biting into her skin. The floor vibrated. Drawers rattled. Somewhere above, glass shattered. The three subjects were coming down the stairwell. Nora shoved deeper into records, weaving through aisles. She stumbled into an alcove at the far end, where a desk sagged under the weight of a reel projector. Unlike the others, this one glowed faint, power still coursing. A canister sat beside it, label handwritten in smeared ink, the last transfer. She hesitated, then loaded it. The reel spun, the wall bloomed with flickering film, images of Marrow Creek. Streets empty, cars still running, swings rocking. Then the school gymnasium, filled with townsfolk seated in threes. A man in uniform at the podium. He lifted a hand. The camera trembled as though the operator couldn't stand still. Then, light. Amber light flooding the gym, pouring from speakers. Faces turned upward, mouths open. They weren't screaming. They were counting. The film froze on Ruth's face. 17, hair tied back, mouth forming a number Nora couldn't hear but knew. The reel burned white. The image seared her eyes. The projector coughed, smoked, died. The PA thundered through the records vault. Subject 27C confirmed. Phase 4 may begin. Phase 4, there was more. Her phone vibrated in her hand. The cracked screen blazed one last message. Balance stable. Transfer ready. Behind her, the stairwell door burst open. 3 sets of footsteps entered, slow, certain. The 3 sets of footsteps echoed through the records vault, slow, steady, perfectly matched to the pulse. 2 long, 1 short. The rhythm crawled across the floor, through the file cabinet, into her ribs. Nora shoved the burnt projector aside and sprinted down an aisle. Drawers banged shut on their own as she passed, the steel shuddering like teeth gnashing. Dust gusted out in clouds, choking her lungs. Her recorder caught her breathless whisper. Time code 0508. Records vault breached. Entities still pursuing. Phase 4 initiated. Facility logic escalating. At the far wall, her beam struck a service hatch half hidden by fallen folders. She dragged them aside, spun the wheel handle, shoved through into a passage reeking of oil paint and stagnant water. The door clanged shut behind her. The passage narrowed into a maintenance tunnel. Pipes lined the ceiling, some dripping, others humming with that hated rhythm. The floor sloped down. She followed, every step splashing through shallow water. Her flashlight swept graffiti scrawled in chalk along the tunnel walls. We were ledgers. We were balance. 3 makes it stop. The letters smeared where fingers had clawed them in haste. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a cavern lit by red emergency bulbs. A massive circular chamber waited, ringed with steel walkways. In the center, suspended by cables, hung a vast drum-shaped machine. Its surface throbbed with light. The rhythm pounded into her marrow, 2 long, 1 short. She froze. This was no side chamber. This was the heart of Project Goshawk. Her phone buzzed again, though she had watched it die. The fractured screen glowed faint, displaying new text. Phase 4 error bar release account complete. When subject 27C accepts, her throat tightened. She hadn't accepted anything. But the system didn't care. It had written her in. The drum machine shifted, cables creaking. Vents along its side opened, expelling mist that smelled like ozone and iron. Within the mist, faint forms flickered. Faces, shoulders, hands. They dissolved when she blinked, but came back with every pulse. A grated stair spiraled up toward a control platform bolted to the drum's flank. She bolted for it, boots ringing on steel. At the top, consoles stretched in a semicircle, switches and dials labeled in military precision. One panel bore a single lever under glass, label etched in bold. Phase terminate. Counter. Nora's hand shook. Counter. She had seen the word scrawled on an index card in the transfer gallery. If tone persists, set PA to counter and hold for 5 beats. She smashed the glass, wrapped fingers around the lever, yanked. The drum screamed, light flared, pulsing erratic. 2 long, 1 short, then silence. Then again stronger, as if resisting. The catwalk beneath her shivered. She hauled the lever down, muscles straining. Sparks spat from the console. The PA overhead roared. Unauthorized override. Correction engaged. Below, doors burst open around the chamber's edge. From each doorway, groups of 3 emerged. Shadows, bodies, echoes. Whatever they were, they marched in trios. Dozens of trios, their steps synchronized to the broken rhythm. Nora's recorder caught her ragged voice. Entities multiplying, entire facility mobilized, counter ineffective. Her phone buzzed again. A final flicker. Count equals 3, balance stable. Counter denied. The lever locked in her grip. She pulled until her shoulder screamed, but it would not move. The drum's glow only intensified, faces inside clearer now. Ruth's eyes stared out, lips forming her name. The catwalk shook. The trios had begun to climb. Rusted ladders groaned under their synchronized weight. Hands gripped rails, heads tilted in rhythm. Nora backed from the console. She had one chance left, the recorder. Proof might not free her, but maybe, just maybe, it could tell the world what Marrow Creek had become. She raised it, spoke steady through her terror. Time code 0534, Phase 4 core located, counter override failed, system logic absolute, accounting demands completion, entities multiplying in 3s. If this recorder is found, Marrow Creek was not a disappearance. It was arithmetic. Her words caught in her throat. She turned to the ladder leading higher up the chamber wall, toward a maintenance hatch glimmering faint in the red light. The trios below climbed closer. The drum pulsed brighter, glass shattering in its seams. Faces spilled outward like liquid, eyes blind but searching. Ruth's voice threaded through them all, a desperate chord. Break it, Nora. Break the count. She climbed, every rung slick with condensation. The hatch overhead her only promise. But as she reached for it, the chamber below thundered with a new command. The first time she had heard words from the machine itself. Subject 27C, accept balance. The hatch handle weighted cold in her grip. Behind, 1,000 feet marched in 3s. The hatch wheel was slick with condensation. Nora gripped it, shoved with her shoulder. It refused to turn, as though the steel itself obeyed the machine's command, not her strength. Below, the chamber thundered with marching feet, groups of 3 climbing ladders, filing across catwalks, every movement synced to the pulse. 2 long, 1 short. Her recorder captured her hoarse whisper. Time code 0601. Heart of facility issuing direct command. Hatch locked. Entities multiplying. Phase 4 fully active. The voice came again, no longer from the PA but from the machine itself, its vibrations rattling the marrow in her bones. Subject 27C, accept balance. Accounting demands. She squeezed her eyes shut. Not me, not me. Her phone flickered one last time in her pocket. She pulled it out, screen fractured but alive, and read the message. You are not the first break, I'll survive. She stared. A different voice in the system? Or a remnant of someone before her? The trios climbed closer. Their faces were clearer now, blurred but human, eyes bleached white, lips moving soundlessly in the pattern of numbers. They didn't stumble. They didn't hesitate. Balance carried them upward. Nora looked back at the drum. Its seams split wider, amber light bleeding out, shapes pressing against the fissures. Her grandmother's face surfaced, whispering silently through molten glow. Nora. Something inside her cracked. She couldn't sit and cradle 27C. She couldn't let the machine finish its sum. She unclipped the recorder, pressed it to her lips. Override attempt 2. If counter fails, I'll disrupt manually. Her gaze fell on the stair, spiraling to the platform at the drum's base. Panels there flickered faint green, marked with old engineer labels. AUX feed, vent override, core pressure. She descended, every step rattling under the synchronized march above. The platform vibrated with the drum's heartbeat. Amber glow seeped through its seams, licking her boots with light. The nearest panel hummed alive when she touched it. Dials quivered. A needle slammed into the red. Core pressure, critical. Her fingers found a release switch. She yanked. The chamber convulsed. The marching faltered for a heartbeat, hundreds of feet stuttering out of sync. The pulse cracked, missed a beat. A roar erupted, not mechanical, not human. Something vast bellowed from within the drum, a note so deep it made the air itself ripple. The trios resumed, faster now, urgency replacing patience. Nora lunged for another lever, vent override, and shoved it up. Vents along the drum's surface belched gas and light. Amber mist rolled across the chamber floor. Faces swam inside it, flickering, reaching. For an instant, she thought she saw Ruth's hand, pressed flat against the mist as if against glass. The recorder caught her scream. "They're inside it! Not gone! Trapped!" The mist swirled upward, tasting the air. The trios coughed but did not stop. Their lungs seemed tuned to the poison. Above, the catwalk buckled under their weight. A section collapsed, 3 figures tumbling into the mist. They didn't scream. They simply dissolved, replaced by 3 more climbing out of another door. Balance preserved. Nora staggered back, shoulder slamming into the console. Her flashlight beam swept across a final switch, locked beneath a metal cover. Letters stamped bold into the plate. Core terminate. Her pulse hammered. She flipped the cover open. A key slot gaped. Empty. "Of course," she rasped. The PA boomed again, layered with voices, now hundreds speaking in one. "Accounting is balance. Phase 4 will endure. Subject 27C, accept." The recorder trembled in her hands. She forced words into it. "Core terminate requires key. Without it, shutdown impossible. Entities massing. I may not..." Her voice cracked. "I may not make it out." The hatch above rattled once, as if shaken from the outside. Dust rained down. A faint glimmer filtered through, a reminder there was still a way up, still a world above the ledger. The machine bellowed, louder now, splitting its seams. Ruth's face surfaced again, lips forming words she could finally hear, carried on the vibration itself. "Break it. Break the 3. Nora's gaze locked on the venting core, the mist spilling out, the trios closing in. If she couldn't terminate with the key, maybe she could force imbalance another way. Her phone, clutched tight, flickered one last message before dying cold. "Balance only holds if you obey." The ladder to the hatch above waited. The trios below closed in, arms stretching, mouths whispering. Nora had one choice: climb for the world above, or dive into the core itself where balance might finally break. Nora's boots slid on the trembling platform. The drum core groaned, light spilling in angry pulses, amber leaking from seams like blood. The air vibrated with the command of hundreds of voices, layered into one demand. Subject 27C, accept balance. The hatch above rattled again, promising escape, but the recorder in her hand felt heavier than her own body. Proof meant nothing if she climbed out and left the machine whole. The count would continue, others would vanish, Marrow Creek would repeat. Her grandmother's whisper trembled through the mist. "Break it, Nora, break the 3. She gritted her teeth, spun back to the console. The core terminate switch still glared at her, locked, keyless. Beside it, the dials quivered at maximum, pressure screaming red. If she couldn't turn it off properly, maybe she could drive it past its limits. She slammed both palms onto the AOX feed levers and shoved them forward. The core screamed, the chamber shook, catwalks rattling bolts free. Sparks burst from vents. The mist thickened, faces in it clearer. Ruth, the boy she'd seen in the preserved ward, strangers she didn't know but who stared at her with pleading eyes. The trios halted their climb. For the first time they faltered. Steps uneven. Heads jerked. Balance cracked. Her recorder caught her rasp. Time code 0628. Overload engaged. Entities disrupted. Facility destabilizing. The PA shrieked with static. Then a voice, strained, mechanical, almost pained. Correction failure. Balance at risk. The trio staggered, some collapsing. 3 fell together into the mist, dissolving like paper in flame. But where balance broke, replacements did not come. Her phone flickered alive in her pocket, though the battery was long gone. A single message scrolled across. Count EOS 2. Break is possible. Her throat tightened. She slammed another lever. Vent override. More mist belched, blasting across the chamber. The faces inside writhed, mouths forming words. Release us. The core's amber glow cracked, fissures spreading like lightning. A high-pitched whine cut through the chamber, drilling into her skull. She clapped hands to her ears, but the recorder still caught the sound. System destabilizing, core fracture imminent. The trio shrieked, not screams, but the sound of numbers failing, a chant collapsing. They scattered, breaking into pairs, singles, no longer bound in threes. The symmetry was broken. The drum convulsed. Amber light sprayed outward, painting walls, burning through catwalks. One blast caught a trio mid-step, shattering them into dust. Nora staggered, clutching the railing. Her phone spat one more line. Count, Itaewon, you are the error. Her chest seized. Me, they're hunting me now. The hatch above thundered, dust raining down. Someone or something was forcing it open from the outside. For the first time, she heard a sound not shaped by the facility, a crowbar striking steel. A man's shout, muffled. Hello? Anyone down there? Her heart lurched. The world outside, the present. She wasn't alone. The PA screamed back in fury. No witnesses. Balance must be complete. The drum split wider. A wave of amber shot upward, chasing the sound of the crowbar, trying to drown the intrusion. Nora grabbed her recorder, shoved it against her lips. This is Nora Hale, Marrow Creek survivor. Facility core destabilizing. Proof secured. If anyone finds this, don't let them seal it again. Don't let them count. Her words blurred into the roar. The hatch above burst open, a square of blinding daylight piercing the chamber. Silhouettes leaned in, ropes unfurling. A man's voice called again. Take her hand. Nora froze between light above and the fissured core below, where Ruth's face shone brighter than ever, lips whispering silently. Stay. Her phone pulsed one last line before the screen died forever. Choose, break, or balance. She staggered toward the ladder, heart hammering. Daylight poured in, but the machine below convulsed, Ruth's image stretching her hand through the amber. Begging, her next step would decide whether Marrow Creek's count ended here, or whether she became 27C forever. Daylight poured through the hatch like a wound in the ceiling. Dust motes flared in its glow, drowning out the red emergency lights below. For the first time since stepping into Marrow Creek's underbelly, Nora saw proof of the outside world, a sky that hadn't been tallied into threes. Voices shouted from above. Human, alive. One voice clearer than the rest. We've got you, climb! But below, the core writhed, amber spilling from its cracks in molten rivers. The faces inside it screamed soundlessly, hands pressed against the fissures. Her grandmother's face rose among them, lips trembling in silent plea. Don't leave me. The recorder in Nora's hand trembled. Its microphone buzzed, as though eager to swallow her choice. She whispered into it, voice splintered. Time code 0655. Exit above confirmed. Core destabilizing. Entities trapped inside demanding balance. Decision point, break the cycle or complete it. The machine bellowed, its voice filling the chamber, vibrating her organs. Subject 27C, accept, balance, or perish. The catwalk shuddered. A ladder peeled from the wall, crashing into the mist. The trios that had once climbed so patiently were gone, dissolved into pairs, singles, chaos. Balance had fractured, but not enough. The PA roared warnings of correction, promising it would never stop until the equation was whole again. Her phone, dead for minutes, flared to life one last time. Across its fractured glass scrolled 4 words. Break equals witness, balance equal end. Nora's eyes burned. If she climbed to the hatch, she would carry proof, her recorder, her photos, the slips with names. She could tell the story. break the secrecy, break the count, but the machine might survive. The faces inside the amber might remain imprisoned, forever cycling through endless sums. Ruth among them. Her grandmother's whisper rose again, soft, desperate. Don't let us be homework forever. The floor of the chamber split. Amber cascaded upward in geysers, painting the walls. Heat seared Nora's skin. The rope from above dangled only feet away. Her recorder captured her final words of the moment. If I climb, I witness. If I stay, I end it. Either way, I am 27C. The drum screamed, splitting wider. Ruth's hand thrust through molten light, impossibly solid, reaching for her. Above, the rescuers shouted louder, their ropes swinging closer, an escape into daylight. Two paths stretched before her. Grab Ruth's hand, dive into the core, become balance, and end the machine from within. Seize the rope, climb into daylight, carry the proof, break the count by exposing it to the world. Her pulse thundered louder than the facility's rhythm. Too long, one short, two futures, one step. Nora lunged. Nora's body snapped into motion before her mind caught up. The catwalk tilted beneath her boots, one rail already torn loose, rattling under the quake of the core. The rope swung close, brushing her shoulder with the grit of real hemp. Above, voices strained. Take it, now! Below, Ruth's hand glowed in amber light, impossibly clear, reaching through fissured glass. Her eyes were wide, pleading. 17 forever. The pulse hammered. Too long, one short. But now it wasn't steady. It was frantic, broken, fighting to restore itself. Nora's lungs burned. The recorder clattered in her pocket, still live, still capturing proof. She could escape. She could carry it into the daylight, tell the world what had been buried. Witness. But Ruth's whisper slid under her skin. If you go, the count survives. The chamber shuddered, a thunderous groan that sent amber light spurting upward. Heat scorched her neck. The rope bucked. Another voice above, urgent, terrified. She's falling! Pull her up! Nora lunged for the rope, fingers clamped around it, burning with friction. She dangled above the rupturing core, boots swinging. Shouts erupted above, rope jerking as unseen arms heaved. Daylight widened. For the first time in 56 years, the underbelly of Marrow Creek was opening to the sky. The machine screamed. A guttural sound shook dust from the rafters, bolts snapping like rifle shots. Faces in the amber howled silently, hands clawing at the glass prison as the rope lifted her higher. Then the core's voice thundered, louder than any siren. No witnesses, balance must endure. The rope lurched downward. The rescuers above strained, but something below pulled harder. Nora's hands scorched on the fibers. Her pack swung, recorder clattering against her ribs. She kicked, desperate, searching for purchase. Her phone, dead, broken, useless, flared one last message, blinding white on fractured glass. Break it from above. Her mind snapped to the console below, the levers, the pressure gauges already in the red. The core terminate slot waiting for a key that didn't exist. But she had moved them far enough that the machine was on the edge. One more shove might be enough. She twisted on the rope, screaming down into the chamber. I won't be your math! With every ounce of strength, she let go. She plummeted. Heat swallowed her. The core opened like a mouth. Her boots struck the platform beside the console. Pain shot through her legs, but she was alive. Hands trembling, she slammed the AUX feed levers again, forcing them past their limits. Gauges snapped, glass flying. She smashed the vent controls, sparks leaping. The drums shrieked, a metallic wail. Amber geysered upward, splitting the chamber walls. Catwalks peeled away. The trios that had marched so perfectly dissolved into dust, numbers unraveling. The PA screamed its last command, Subject 27C, reconcile, before static swallowed it whole. Nora dragged herself to the rail. Ruth's hand pressed against the amber, eyes locked to hers. For an instant, her lips formed one final word, free. The drums split completely. Amber light exploded outward, searing white, swallowing sound and shape. Nora's recorder, still running, captured the roar. Then silence. The chamber was gone. Nora lay flat, lungs raw, the taste of copper and ozone scalding her tongue. Her flashlight had died. Her phone was nothing but black glass. For the first time since descending the hatch, there was no pulse. The rhythm that had lived in her teeth and bones had vanished. She lifted her head. The chamber was unrecognizable. The vast drum was gone, shattered into ribs of twisted metal. Pools of cooling amber bled across the floor, glowing faint like embers. The faces inside it were dissolving, thinning into air. Ruth's among them. Her grandmother's voice whispered once more, soft as wind slipping through reeds. "Thank you." Then silence. Nora's chest heaved. She fumbled for her recorder. Miraculously, its red light still blinked. She pressed it to her lips. Time code 0722. Core destroyed. Pulse ended. Subjects released. Entities gone. Her voice cracked. Balance broken. The ground trembled, not in rhythm but in collapse. The ceiling split. Concrete chunks rained down. Water surged through fractured pipes, hissing across the floor. Somewhere above, daylight widened. Shouts echoed faintly. The rescuers were still there. She staggered to her feet. Pain shot up her side. Her ribs were bruised or worse, but she forced her legs to move. She climbed what remained of a twisted catwalk, hands scraping rust, boots slipping on dust and amber. At the top, she reached the hatch. It was still open, a jagged square of blinding light. Hands reached down, rough, calloused, real. One voice barked, "Grab her!" She stretched. Their grip clamped her wrist, strong, pulling. She scrambled, muscles screaming, and tumbled into daylight. The sky above seared her eyes. After hours of amber glow and concrete dark, the sun was violent. She gasped it in anyway, sobbing into her sleeve. The rescuers, two men in hard hats, dust masks dangling from their necks, stared at her. One held her arm. The other knelt, eyes wide. "What the hell's down there?" Nora clutched the recorder to her chest. "Evidence," she rasped. "All of it. They weren't lost. They were—" Her throat closed. Words died. Behind them she saw where she had surfaced. The ruins of the Merrill Creek Water Tower. Its base collapsed into a yawning crater. The ground still shook, faint rumbles echoing from below. The younger rescuer pointed. "We need to move. That whole thing's coming down." Nora staggered with them across the field. Each step away from the crater felt unreal. Birds wheeled above, their cries sharp and normal. The world carried on. But her ears rang with silence where the pulse had lived. At the ridge, she looked back. Dust plumed from the crater, amber glow leaking like smoke from a dying fire. Then the ground collapsed inward with a roar, bearing the remains of Project Goshawk. Her phone vibrated. She flinched, pulling it free. The screen was black, dead. Yet across it ghosted faint text, lingering like a burn mark. Account terminated. Her knees buckled. The recorder nearly slipped from her hands. She forced herself to whisper into it. "This is Nora Hale. Merrill Creek wasn't a ghost town. It was an equation. They ended it with threes, and now it's broken." The rescuers exchanged a glance, clearly not understanding, but they didn't press. They guided her down the ridge, back toward waiting trucks. For the first time, she felt the outside world press around her. Wind tugged her hair. The smell of pine cut the stink of ozone. The rhythm was gone. Yet in her bones, faint as memory, she thought she still felt it. Two long, one short. A ghost knocking on silence. The trucks idled at the edge of the ridge, their diesel hum strangely comforting after hours of mechanical shrieks and pulsing silence. Rescue workers clustered around Nora, questions spilling in sharp bursts. "Are you hurt? Anyone else down there? What did you see?" She clutched the recorder tighter, as though the little red light was the only proof she hadn't gone mad. Her voice rasped, "Later, just get me away from the crater." They guided her into the bed of a truck. Canvas flaps shut out the sun, plunging her into a dim cocoon. She sank onto a bench, chest burning with every breath. Her ribs ached, knees raw, palms sliced from rusted rails. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the silence where the pulse had been. She pressed the recorder to her lips. Time code 0748. Surface extraction complete. Facility collapsed. Accounting terminated, at least on site. Her words faltered. But I still feel it. Her stomach twisted. Because she did. Deep in her chest, faint as a phantom limb, the rhythm lingered. Too long, one short. Not sound, not vibration. Something etched into her. The truck lurched forward, rattling along the gravel road away from Merrill Creek. Through a gap in the canvas, she glimpsed the ruins behind. The water tower's twisted skeleton jutting like broken ribs over the smoking crater. Dust plumes rose, carrying a faint amber shimmer into the sky before vanishing. The rescuer across from her, grimy face, young eyes, studied her like she was something dug out of a tomb. "You were really down there?" Nora nodded. She didn't try to explain. The words would sound insane without the evidence in her pack. The slips, the diary, the photos burned onto her phone, and above all, the recorder, still blinking. She looked down at it. The counter ticked onward, red light, steady. But faintly, almost imperceptibly, the waveform bars on its tiny display quivered. Recording silence, or recording something she couldn't hear anymore. Her throat dried. She tapped the side. The display froze, then scrolled 3 jagged words across the LCD. Count Aquazawista 1. Her stomach dropped. She whispered, "No, it's over." But the recorder scrolled again, as if correcting her. "You broke balance. New ledger begins." Her hand shook so hard she nearly dropped it. The rescuer frowned. "You okay?" She forced a nod, slid the recorder back into her pack. Proof or curse, she couldn't decide which anymore. The truck wound out of the valley. Pines thickened, sunlight filtering in shards. The air smelled of resin and earth. Ordinary. But Nora's mind reeled with images. Cages swaying in black shafts. Faces pressed against amber. Ruth's 17-year-old hand reaching. The rescuer broke the silence again. "They'll want a statement. Reporters, government, everyone. You'll be on the news." Her lips twisted. News. How could she condense arithmetic made of people into headlines? 17-year-old girl vanishes in 1969 experiment. Granddaughter counted in 2025. It wasn't a story, it was a ledger. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting a dead screen. Instead, faint text burned ghost-like across cracked glass. Account migrated. Her hands went cold. She whispered, "To where?" The answer scrolled slowly, painfully deliberate. "With you." Her lungs seized. She shoved the phone face down, breath ragged. The rescuer didn't notice. He only stared at the road ahead. Nora pressed her forehead to her pack. Her grandmother's last whisper threaded through memory. "Break it." She had. The facility was gone. The town's voices were free. But the count had followed her. The recorder ticked on, steady red light burning in the dark, waiting for the next number. The truck bounced over ruts in the gravel road, its suspension groaning. Nora gripped the bench, trying to steady her breathing, but every jolt made her ribs scream. The rescuer across from her kept sneaking glances, probably wondering why she clutched her pack like it was a lifeline. The recorder inside ticked on. Its faint red light burned through the fabric, steady, relentless. She could feel the pulse hiding inside it, even if her ears could not. Too long, one short. She pulled it out, thumb hovering over the stop button. Proof was precious, but what if proof was also infection? What if stopping it now was the only way to keep the count from following her farther? Her thumb pressed down. The recorder resisted. The button refused to depress, as though jammed. The LCD flickered, scrolling jagged text across its pixelated screen. Account in progress. Subject 27C equals active. Nora's breath snagged. The rescuer frowned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she lied, sliding the recorder back into her bag. The truck turned onto a paved road, pine forest blurring past. Telephone poles marched alongside them. Civilization. She should have felt safe. Instead, every pole reminded her of the siren towers she had seen in the old footage. Tools of arithmetic disguised as infrastructure. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. She swore she had powered it down. She pulled it free. Across the fractured screen, faint green text crawled. Count IOS 2. Her blood iced. 2? With who? The rescuer's walkie crackled. A dispatcher's voice bled through. Unit 4 confirms survivors secured. Copy? The rescuer lifted the mic. Copy. Survivor stable. Bringing her in. The walkie hissed. For a moment, no voice replied. Then, 3 tones pulsed over the frequency. 2 long, 1 short. The rescuer blinked, puzzled. That's weird interference. Nora's skin crawled. She grabbed his wrist before he could respond again. Don't answer it. He pulled his arm back, unsettled. Lady, it's just static. No, she whispered. It's not. The walkie hissed again. This time a child's voice crackled through, thin, metallic. 3 makes it stop. The rescuer paled. What the hell? He twisted the knob, killing the feed. Nora pressed her forehead to her knees, bile climbing her throat. The count was migrating, out of the tunnels, into signals, machines, airwaves. Breaking the core hadn't destroyed it. It had released it. Her phone buzzed again. She forced herself to look. The message scrolled. New ledger, subjects pending. She whispered into the recorder, desperate to anchor herself. Timecode 0811, facility destroyed, but acoustic pattern persists through external systems. Ledger restarted. I am still active. Count rising. The truck rumbled onto smoother ground. Signs appeared. Welcome to Pine Hollow. Population 3,112. Her stomach turned. A number divisible by 3. The rescuer followed her gaze. Home stretch. You'll be safe soon. Safe. The word felt like a joke. Her phone buzzed one final time. On its cracked glass, words appeared, stark and merciless. Count, 83, balance stable. The truck slowed for a red light. On the corner, 3 children stood at a bus stop, laughing, hands linked. Their voices rose in perfect cadence, 2 long, 1 short. Nora's heart nearly stopped. The ledger had already chosen. The truck rolled deeper into Pine Hollow, tires humming over blacktop. Houses appeared. Neat porches, trimmed lawns, mailboxes lined like teeth. After hours underground, the normalcy looked counterfeit. A stage set too perfect. Nora clutched her pack tighter. The red light of her recorder still glowed faintly through the canvas. She whispered under her breath, voice ragged. Time code 0834. Arrived at Pine Hollow. External ledger confirmed active. Count stabilized at 3. Pattern visible outside containment. The rescuer glanced at her. You talking to yourself? She forced a cough. Documentation. He nodded but didn't press. The truck turned past a diner, its neon sign flickering. Nora's eyes caught on the parking lot. 3 cars sat evenly spaced, headlights off, their drivers inside, faces tilted slightly upward. Listening. Her ribs clenched. No, not again. The walkie on the dash hissed. 2 long tones, 1 short. The rescuer frowned. That's been happening all day. Probably the storm knocked something. Stop the truck! Nora's voice cracked sharp. He blinked. What? Stop it! The driver braked hard. Gravel crunched under tires. Nora flung the canvas open and jumped out, boots slamming the asphalt. Her legs wobbled but held. The town around her was still. Too still. A group of people stood at a bus stop across the street. 9 of them. Perfectly divisible. Their lips moved together in silence. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Across the cracked glass, Count Aves 6. Her lungs seized. It's not me, it's all of them. The whole town's been pulled in. The recorder in her pack scrolled its own jagged text. Ledger migrated, Pine Hollow, Eels Subject Group 28. Nora staggered to the curb, bile burning her throat. She whispered into the recorder. Phase 5. It's begun. The experiment didn't end underground. It spread, the town itself counting. Behind her, the rescuers climbed from the truck, confused, muttering. One lifted his radio. Dispatch, do you read? The response came instantly. A chorus of voices, layered, unified. Balance, balance, balance. The rescuer dropped the radio like it had bitten him. Streetlights along the avenue flickered. Each in 3s, 3 blinks, postfo, 3 blinks. Windows in houses lit the same way. a pattern spreading like infection through circuits and signals. Nora's phone buzzed again, relentless. New text scrawled across. Count 9 balance stable. Her vision blurred. She turned to the rescuers. We have to get out. Leave the town. Now. They didn't move. Their eyes unfocused, tilting upward, mouths parting. In unison, they whispered, 2, 3. Her blood froze. They're already inside it. She bolted down the street. The town unfolded around her like a script. People standing in groups of 3, heads angled, lips moving in cadence. Traffic lights pulsed to the pattern. Even the dogs in yards were barked in triplets, leashes rattling metal fences in rhythm. Her recorder caught her panicked voice. Pine Hollow is compromised. Entire population synchronized. This is replication. Containment failed. She stumbled past a storefront window. In the reflection, she saw herself, alone, clutching her pack, eyes wild. But behind her reflection stood 2 pale figures, blurred, their mouths moving silently. The glass spidered from inside. She spun, but the sidewalk was empty. Only her own ragged breathing filled the night. Then her phone screamed with static. Across its ruined screen blazed a single new line. Count EOS 27C, balance confirmed. Her chest iced. She rasped, No, that's not. From the diner door, 3 patrons stepped out, shoulders aligned, eyes milky, mouths opening to finish the rhythm. The pulse rolled through Pine Hollow, rattling windows, vibrating the air itself. 2 long, 1 short. Balance had found her again. Nora ran. Her lungs burned, her ribs screamed, but her legs refused to stop. Every street of Pine Hollow unfolded like a stage choreographed to a rhythm only she could feel in her bones. Street lamps pulsed in 3s. Porch lights blinked in triplets. Even the crickets along the roadside chirped in time. 2 long, 1 short. Her recorder rattled in her pack, red light steady. She yanked it free. The LCD crawled text in stuttering pixels. Ledger expanding, population equals 3,112. Her throat seized. The exact number she'd seen on the sign when they entered town. Pine Hollow wasn't safe. It was the next column in the book. She whispered into the mic, voice shaking. Time code 0857. Entire population synchronized. Pine Hollow is phase 5. The ledger isn't local. It migrates. A shriek of feedback cut her words. The recorder's screen scrolled a new line. Not her voice, but something else bleeding through. Count equals 3,113. Her stomach turned. Me, she whispered. It counted me with them. The sidewalks began to fill. Residents left their houses, drawn by nothing but the pulse. Families stepped into the street, lining up in neat trios. Their mouths moved without sound, lips shaping numbers. Children clutched hands in sets of 3, swaying. A hum rose, thick as fog, swelling into her bones. It wasn't just sound, it was the equation itself, using bodies as its instruments. Nora staggered into an alley, pressing her back to brick. Her phone buzzed again, hot in her palm. Across its fractured glass, account verified, balance stable. She shook her head violently. No, I broke you. I ended you. The screen scrolled again, slow, patient. You did. Now you are the balance. Her vision swam. She pressed the recorder to her lips. If anyone hears this, don't come to Pine Hollow. Don't step inside. Once it sees you, you're in the ledger. A shadow moved at the alley's mouth. 3 shadows, aligned perfectly, stepping together. Their faces pale, eyes blank, lips counting. Nora bolted deeper into the alley, scrambled over a chain-link fence. The metal vibrated under her grip, 2 long, 1 short. She dropped into another street. Ahead loomed the town's church, its steeple piercing the night sky. Its stained glass windows glowed faintly from within, light flickering in 3s. A bell tolled once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. Her recorder buzzed. New Center, Pine Hollow Church. Nora's knees weakened. That was how Marrow Creek had started. The church basement, the induction session, the chalkboard that had read, "Listen." Now the pattern had its new altar. She forced herself up the steps, pushed through heavy oak doors. Inside, pews stretched in endless rows, and every pew held trios of townsfolk, sitting in perfect silence, their heads turned as one toward her. At the pulpit, an old tape recorder rested, reels turning slowly though no hand touched them. A microphone hissed, then carried a voice she knew too well, her grandmother's. Subject 27C, you cannot run. You must witness or you must join. That is the only way the count ends. Nora's breath fractured. She whispered into her recorder. Phase 5 confirmed. Pine Hollow Church is focal point. Ruth's voice active through new system. She swallowed hard. I don't know if I can break it again. The pews groaned. Every resident stood in unison. 3 by 3, they stepped into the aisles. Their mouths opened. The pulse rolled through the church, rattling the stained glass, vibrating the floorboards. 2 long, 1 short. Nora's phone lit once more, scrawling a single command. Count equals 27C, stand and be accounted. The church trembled under the weight of the pulse. Stained glass rattled in their lead frames, the colors warping into a strobe of red and gold. The entire congregation, hundreds of Pine Hollow's residents, stood motionless in their pews, facing Nora. Rows of 3s, their mouths shaping numbers without sound. At the pulpit, the tape recorder spun. Its reels hissed and crackled, carrying her grandmother's voice across the nave. Subject 27C, you have broken once, but every ledger needs a witness. Every witness must count. Nora's legs shook. Her ribs screamed with each breath. She clutched the recorder in her hands, its little red light still burning. The display twitched, new text crawling across its LCD. Count equals 3,113, awaiting reconciliation. Her phone buzzed next, fractured glass glowing faint. The same words repeated, the same hunger. The residents stepped forward as one. Their shoes thudded in unison against the wooden floorboards, each impact sinking to the pattern. 2 long, 1 short. Nora stumbled backward up the aisle, past rows of empty-eyed children and parents swaying in perfect triplets. She whispered into her recorder, voice cracking. Time code 0918. Pine Hollow congregation fully synchronized. Core gone, but system rebuilt through population. Ruth's voice still active. I may be the last uncontrolled subject. The pews emptied. Trios filed into the center aisle, converging toward her. The pulse roared through the floor, the very beams of the church groaning in cadence. She spun, bolted toward the altar. At the back wall, behind the pulpit, a set of stairs wound upward into the steeple. She took them 2 at a time, lungs tearing, recorder clattering in her grip. The stairs opened into the belfry. A single massive bell hung silent, its ropes swaying in a draft. Through the louvers, Nora saw the whole town, street lamps pulsing, windows blinking, groups of 3 standing motionless in yards. Pine Hollow had become a living circuit. Below, the congregation's voices rose for the first time. Not silent now. A low chant filled the nave, words dragged through static. Balance, balance, balance. Nora's phone blazed with new text. Count 3,000. Her phone, balance stable. Her breath stuttered. Another subject added, who? The bell rope jerked violently as though pulled by invisible hands. It rang once, twice. 3 times, the town below answered in unison, a roar of voices. 3 makes it stop! Nora clamped her hands over her ears, but the recorder caught everything. Its display glitched, numbers scrolling faster than she could read. She fell to her knees beside the bell, gasping. Her phone pulsed one more line. Stand and be accounted. Phase 6. Her grandmother's voice rose above the chant, softer, almost pleading now. Nora, if you don't end it, it leaves Pine Hollow. It spreads. Nora's vision blurred. She forced herself upright, clutching the bell's rope. She whispered into her recorder. Phase 6 initiation. If I ring it wrong, maybe I can break the pattern. I have to try. Below, the congregation reached the base of the steeple stairs. Hundreds of feet hammered the steps, the rhythm growing louder, closer. Nora wrapped the rope around her blistered palms. The bell above her swayed, waiting. 2 long, 1 short. The count pressed into her skull, demanding she repeat it. She bit down hard enough to taste blood, then pulled the rope gun hard. The bell boomed. Its voice was raw iron, but Nora rang it wrong, off pattern. One long, two short. The sound split the air like a wound. The chant below faltered. Feet stumbled. Voices cracked. For the first time, the ledger miscounted. Her recorder's display spasmed. Count, error. The church shuddered. Stained glass exploded outward. Screams rose. Not human screams, not entirely. The ledger was breaking, but the stairs below thundered. The congregation was still coming. Nora clutched the rope again, preparing to tear the pattern apart one peal at a time. The bell's off-pattern toll still quivered in the rafters, its iron voice bending the air. Nora's ears rang, but beneath the pain, silence yawned where the pulse had been. The ledger had miscounted. Below, the congregation reeled. Their chant stuttered, no longer seamless. Trios stumbled into pairs, into singles. Some clutched their heads, mouths frozen mid-number. The sound of their shoes on the steps faltered. Nora's recorder flickered, its tiny screen spasming. Count in error balance destabilized. Her chest seized with hope in terror. The bell rope twitched in her grip like something pulling back. She snarled, yanked again, forcing the clapper to strike. This time she rang it wrong in another way. 3 rapid peals, uneven. The town below screamed. Streetlights burst, glass raining onto asphalt. Windows shattered. People collapsed in the streets, clutching their ears, voices breaking out of sync. Her phone buzzed against her thigh, cracked glass glowing. A counting corrupt spread at risk. She gasped into the recorder. Time code E946. Off-pattern toll disrupted population. System collapsing. Ledger resisting. Trying to migrate. The stairs beneath her thundered. Dozens, no, hundreds of feet scrambled up. The congregation was still coming. They weren't broken enough. Nora gritted her teeth, wrapped the rope around her raw palms, and dragged hard. The bell thundered again. Wrong, ragged. Each strike tore at her ears but shredded the pattern further. The recorder convulsed in her grip. Text scrolled. You are out of balance, phase 6, oboe failure. The congregation's chant turned to screams. Some voices begged in broken English. Others sobbed. Others still muttered arithmetic like prayers. They clambered into the belfry, eyes milky, hands clawing. Nora staggered back against the railing. Her flashlight beams swung wildly, catching pale faces, gaping mouths, hands reaching. She clutched the recorder to her lips. They're still coming. Even with error, I have to end it completely. Her eyes snapped to the bell. The clapper swung violently, cracks spidering across the bronze. It was failing under the wrong rhythm. She made her choice. Nora looped the rope around her waist, planted her boots, and pulled with everything left in her body. Her ribs screamed, skin tore, muscles burned. But the bell gave. It cracked open with a thunderclap. Sound blasted outward, jagged, raw, not a note but a rupture. The congregation shrieked as one, bodies collapsing to the floor, clutching their heads. The town outside howled, lights guttered, dogs barked madly, chains snapping in chaos. Nora's phone blazed one last time. Count is null, ledger broken. She dropped to her knees, gasping, smoke curling from the shattered bell. Around her, the congregation lay strewn, unconscious or dead, their mouths finally silent. Her recorder's light still blinked, stubborn, recording every second. She rasped into it. Core destroyed underground. Ledger broken above. Pine Hollow free, if it can be. Then the floor shook again. Not rhythm. Collapse. The bell tower groaned, beams splitting. Debris rained around her. The whole church was coming down. She scrambled for the steeple hatch, the one glimpse of night sky. But her legs trembled, her vision blurred. Smoke and dust filled her throat. The recorder slipped from her bloody grip, clattering across the boards. Its red light blinked, steady, indomitable. She crawled toward it, fingers stretched. The roof split with a scream of timber. The last thing she saw was the recorder's display, flickering new words. Witness required. The steeple roared as beams splintered. Dust choked the air, timbers snapping like rifle fire. Nora's lungs clawed for breath as she crawled across the swaying boards. Her fingers brushed the recorder. Its red light blinked steadily, absurdly calm amid the ruin. She snatched it up, pressed it to her lips. Time code 1012. Bell shattered. Ledger broken. Church collapsing. If this is my last entry, let it stand as proof. They weren't ghosts. They were arithmetic. And I was the last number. The roof gave way. Stars ripped into view as the steeple collapsed. Nora tumbled with the wreckage, boards and stone hammering around her. She hit hard, ribs screaming, vision blooming white. The recorder clattered from her grip again, landing upright on a fragment of pew. Its light never faltered. Through the haze, she saw Pine Hollow, strewn in silence. Hundreds of townsfolk lay across the streets and churchyard, motionless, not chanting, not counting, just still. The night was quiet, no pulse, no rhythm, only the ragged echo of her breath. The recorder flickered, text crawling across its battered display. Count a new, all-balanced broken ledger terminated. Her body trembled with relief, though her chest burned with broken breaths. It was over. She had broken the 3. Then the screen blinked again, slower this time, as if struggling for its last words. Witness required. Her throat closed. Witness. That's what it wanted all along. Someone to carry the proof, someone to remember. She dragged herself forward, fingers raw, and clutched the recorder tight. The red light reflected in her eyes, steady as a heartbeat. From the ruin of the pulpit, a whisper rose, soft, distant, but unmistakable. Ruth's voice, her grandmother, 17 forever. You did it, Nora. You broke the count. Now carry it. Tell them. Tears cut clean lines through the dust on her face. I will, she rasped. I promise. Sirens wailed in the distance. Flashing lights grew along the road into town. Rescue trucks barreled closer, voices calling, boots pounding. Pine Hollow was waking to chaos that none of them would understand. But Nora held the recorder to her chest like scripture. She forced herself upright, swaying on broken legs, and whispered one final line into the mic. This is Nora Hale, survivor of Merrill Creek and Pine Hollow. The count is broken. The ledger is dead. But if anyone ever hears the pulse again, don't answer. Don't let them count you. The recorder clicked, tape whirring one last time. Its red light steadied, then dimmed. Above, the stars wheeled in silence. No rhythm, no pattern, just skew. And for the first time in 56 years, the numbers were gone.